Hi guys, I struggle with this very basic question. Do the hosts, guests and commentators on GB News not understand immigration and asylum or pretend not to? Because they continually put out misinformation, are corrected on that, but then continue to push the same lines. Now, Scott Lucas, a professor of US and international politics, appeared on a GB News show where he corrected the record. He called out GB News and its hosts for spreading misinformation. And there was a little bit of pushback, but he, of course, corrected the record once again. Have a listen to this.
What was he saying that was nonsense about immigration?
Oh, he was talking, just repeating the standard lines that immigration is an existential threat to Europe. And of course, I live in Europe. And of course, I lived in the UK for almost 40 years. I just listened to 10 minutes of commentary on immigration on your channel, a lot of which was misinformation. I could talk to you right now about what the real figure is regarding channel crossings compared to 2022. Indeed, channel crossings are down 15% compared to 2022. I can talk to you about the number of asylum seekers in hotels.
But they're up 50% on last year.
Yeah, but they're down since 2022, which you never seem to mention. And you never seem to mention the fact that there are these fluctuations.
Because it seems to go against the narrative. The narrative at GB News is immigration is bad, immigration is rising, the small boats crossings are an existential threat to Britain. These are the types of narratives that they're pushing. They won't talk about immigration in a positive way. They won't talk about when numbers are coming down, unless it's, at 10 o'clock in the evening when nobody is watching.
The number of asylum seekers in hotels is down 15% from last year. That's down 15% from last year. It is not illegal to cross the channel in a small boat if you claim asylum. It's perfectly legal under international law. And about 70% of asylum seekers in the UK, their claims are eventually accepted. In other words, they have a legitimate case to come to the United Kingdom. The same thing has been said in many countries, false claims about immigration in Europe. I'm very concerned about the fact that you get out the proper information, precisely whether it's in the US, the UK, or Europe, because this misinformation, especially when it's amplified time and time again, does feed tension. It does feed discord, and it does feed violence, which, by the way, is one reason why the government made the announcement yesterday about that concern about what is going on in social media. The fact is that we went through an episode in the UK last year where misinformation, falsehoods about what happened in Southport fed violence for 2 weeks in the country that used to be my home.
He's completely correct. And did Nigel Farage and GB News apologise for spreading misinformation or amplifying these things? Of course not.
And that type of thing from all people, whatever our views in terms of border security versus the rights of asylum seekers, is something we should be concerned about.
Scott, one thing, first of all, it is illegal to enter the country on a small boat from France under British law. That is a criminal offence.
But not under international law. See, that's something that you probably should mention as well, that this has been a right which has been guaranteed since the 1950s.
This is Britain. This is British law we're living under here at the moment, so that is illegal.
And you also observe international law.
It is a criminal offence.
But there's a conflict because the government also purportedly observes international law, does it not?
Well, I don't know. You need to ask the government that. But this is British law, and it is illegal to do that. And
then I ask the question often: then why is nobody arrested? See, the right-wing commentators will say, "Well, they're breaking the law. They're entering the country illegally." Well, if they are, then why are they not arrested? Why has no asylum seeker been placed in prison as opposed to being placed in an ex-hotel? Once again, if you've broken the law, generally, if you break the law, you go to jail. But we don't see asylum seekers being placed in prison. That's another question somebody at GB News needs to answer.
The statistics and the numbers we use come from the government. So are you accusing the British government of spreading misinformation?
Which statistics are you referring to?
The number of migrants the number of migrants in hotels. When you say they have gone down, yes, they have gone down slightly because the government are moving them into private homes.
No, the government are using a different variety of tactics for handling them. Part of the reason why the number of asylum seekers has gone down in the UK is because it's become much more difficult to claim asylum in the UK. In other words, you speak a lot about people who cross by small boats into the UK, but you don't speak about the overall number of undocumented migrants. Now, the number of undocumented migrants in the UK is not surging. That's something that you don't report. And indeed, the number of overall immigrants into the United Kingdom last year was close to 1 million. So the number of people that cross by small boats compared to migration in the UK is less than 5%.
See, why is there a focus on the small boats and not on the greater immigration figure? Because the small boats can be used as a tactic. It's a fear tactic. Look at these people crossing this in these small boats, crossing illegally, as they will say. They're military-age young men. You won't see GB News reporters at the airport watching people coming and going. They won't be at a hospital interviewing people who are in the country legally, as they would say, with a visa, and say, why are these people here? They're trying to amplify and tap into this fear that people have. Asylum seekers crossing the channel, young men, foreign looking. This is the whole thing about focusing on the small boats. They're not focusing on people who work in the hospitality sector, either legally or illegally, because that doesn't have the same fear factor to it. It doesn't tap into people's primal fears. Small boats does, because it's so apparent, something you can see. People can associate that with illegality, while they can't really do it when it comes to somebody working in the hospital or working in a bar or working in a field or something like that. Maybe they will eventually move on to those people, but at the moment, the small boats is being amplified, of course. 5%, as the professor said here. So why is GB News amplifying that as opposed to talking about the greater issue of immigration? Let me know in the comment section, guys, what you think, and I'll see you in the next video.